Okay, so here we are on the June meeting of the Solarchat forum. Yay, great idea, Alexandra. I'm glad you came up with it, and I look forward to seeing faces every month. So this is Stephen Ramsden, your leader. And I'm the guy that runs the Solarchat forum. If you didn't know, or don't know who I am. So I see Gordon's in his observatory. That's great. Pedro's in his museum. Rainier is in his workshop. Nick is in the attic. Very good. Alan's at the bar.
Really?
All right, awesome. So all right, so listen, I was going to let anybody take it away here, but I wanted to go over a couple of things. First, the fundraiser. Thank you everyone here for participating in the fundraiser. We are a nonprofit 501c3 in the United States, so we have to generate enough interest to get 2/3 of our annual budget from the general public. And we have successfully done that now for 12 years. And we take that money and spend it mostly on shipping, on equipment, sunglasses, etc. And then I distribute those around the world. We don't sell anything. We don't pay any salaries. We pay for the Solarchat forum, etc. And if anybody is interested or has insomnia, they're welcome to look over our tax records, which are available online. Natalie and I started the program after my friend Charlie killed himself. And we take the military portion of my retirement funds, the majority of it. And then we raise the rest of the money on Facebook. It's the only place we ever do fundraisers, and Solarchat. So I appreciate everybody that participated. And of course, you don't have to pay anything to be involved in our group, but it does help to share the expenses. And I expect everything to get much busier in the next 2 years with the 2 eclipses coming up in North America. So recently we got 149 total donations during the fundraiser, which I got to tell you it's hard to believe that this program runs on 140 people or 150 people a year. That's about average for the donations. And you know, we've got glasses in the hands of hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And you know, it's just the way things are. Some people can afford to help. Some people don't understand what a nonprofit is, and they think it's some kind of scam or whatever. But fundraising is about as fun as pulling your fingernails out. It's something that no one likes to do, but you just have to do it in order to run a nonprofit in the United States. So thank you for those very few people that participated, and hopefully we'll have that many next time. Thanks to Alexandra and some others' idea about allowing 3 advertiser logos on the Solarchat forum, we were able to raise enough money to pay to get the forum rehosted. What does that mean? Well, we were on Network Solutions before, and Network Solutions is okay. They had a lot of problems as far as size goes, and they're probably the most hacked host on earth. They were the original web host in the US. So we decided to go with a more specialized host, and we're now on a DreamHost, which specializes in hosting PHP formats and WordPress formats. And the consultant that I use recommended this. And so we purchased a 2-year agreement with DreamHost, and we were able to transfer, this is just their website if anybody cares. We were able to transfer 52 gigabytes of attachments from Network Solutions, and our limit at Network Solutions was supposed to be 30 gigabytes, but we were almost twice that limit and nobody noticed. And they also have a database size limit at Network Solutions of 1 gigabyte. So if you don't know, a PHP forum, the text and the structure and the topics and conferences and all the structural elements and the text are all contained in a SQL database. And every time you make a post, it's assigned a number. Every user has a number, and you interact with this SQL database. When you pull up a post, it goes to this post number, and it has a lot of things in the database that are associated with it. One of them is attachments that may have been associated with the post. The attachments themselves are not stored in the database. They're stored in a separate folder. And that folder was incredibly large. I don't think that there's probably any other PHP forum in the world that has that many attachments or that size attachments. But the host we have now, I bought a private server with them. So we have our own little computer that serves us, and it has unlimited space for attachments. Supposedly, they all say everything's unlimited until you start getting way up high. And then all of a sudden there's a limit. But our database limit, we surpassed 1 gigabyte 2 years ago. And that's why I had to get rid of the search function off of the Solarchat forum and put up Google search instead. But now that we've got 3 times the size of database limit, supposedly it's also unlimited, but they said once you get to 3 gigabytes, then they start asking questions. So we should be good for another 10 or 12 years. And I doubt that I'll live that long. So we should be good for the rest of my life. And I don't know which one of you is going to take over the forum, but we'll see. Maybe Pedro can take over the forum because he's going to live forever.
I'm older than you, man.
But anyway, so now we're hosted on DreamHost. And one other thing we have to do is change our domain name, solarchatforum.com. It is currently still hosted on Network Solutions. But in order to change that over to DreamHost, we're going to lose all the emails associated with the Solarchat forum, which I don't think anybody here has an email there. I think some of you still use solarastronomy.org email addresses.
Yeah. What's going to that?
Those are okay. They're not going to change.
All right. Okay.
That I know of. We have 2 hosting packages on Network Solutions. One of them was for solarastronomy.org and one of them was for solarchatforum.com. And they were 2 separate packages. So the solarastronomy.org email addresses are not going to change. So anyway, that's working now. And it was a very, very smooth transition. And this place is really professional. One of the things I don't like about them is that it's just ran by about 20 guys in the US, and they have office hours. They're not open 24 hours. So if there's a problem after hours, we just have to wait till they get back open. And also if you have a problem, if Alexandra messages me on Facebook that somebody can't put a colon in their post or something, I have to wait until somebody at DreamHost replies to the email. They don't have any live support, but so far it's ran very smoothly and very quickly. So if anybody's having any more email problems, it's not me, it's you. But if you'll let me know, because the email is working. That was something that always bugged me, because anytime we got a new member, they would never get a confirmation email, and they'd end up emailing me, and they were frustrated. And then of course I'd get online and fix it real quick for them. But now the emails all should be working properly. And there was something else. We had 2 users this past month since we went to DreamHost that tried to put colons in the text of their post, and it would not allow it for some reason. So they would kept getting server errors. So if anybody has used a special character in their post and got a server error, I'd appreciate you letting me know about it. It's not supposed to do that. And we tried it from 3 different usernames here in the US and never got the problem to be recreated. I could never recreate the problem, even from the usernames that had the problem. I'd logged in with their credentials and still could not get it to cause the same problem.
I actually had that problem once where I did a post and I just kept getting that server error all the time. But because we'd had that problem before, I checked through all of my text and I didn't have colons in strange places. So what I did is I just copied and pasted what I'd written out into Microsoft Word, then just wrote the word test, posted it, and it posted. So what I did was I just then went in to edit that post, put my text back in, and it just went straight in.
Yeah, I got a feeling it's got to do with the browser that's being used rather than the text. Everybody, there's so many different browsers out there. Safari, I know, works good with our forum because I program it in Safari. So I don't know what other browsers people are using, but I try to test it with Google Chrome, with Safari, with Microsoft Internet Explorer and such. But I got a feeling the problem is the browser and something with the browser settings for the person that's using it. Because a lot of the things in here that you think are the forum's fault are actually the browser settings. Like somebody else wanted me to do something last time. What was it? Oh, where you click a image and they wanted it to open in a new window rather than open
Yeah, I
in the
still
same
can't
window.
get that to work.
Well, that's in your browser. I mean, that's not
I
something
can't find it anywhere.
that's not something that PHP controls. When you click a link on your computer, your browser is set to either open a new window or not open a new window. And there's no way I can change that in a forum. So, well, I mean, I could change that in a forum, but it would change everybody who uses the forum. And, so a lot of things are in your browser. And what browser did you say you were using, Alexandra?
Google Chrome.
Google Chrome. Okay.
You should be able to right click and then you have a choice to open in a new window.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I do that. I
Yeah.
just wanted to do it automatically.
Oh,
On a PC. And of course,
Yeah.
on a Mac, it would be control click. But anyway, so the other thing I was going to mention, did anybody have any questions or concerns about the new host? Hopefully nobody even noticed. I mean, it was only down for 3 hours. I thought it was going to be 3 or 4 days.
Works great for me.
Nice,
Yeah.
good, yeah.
And that it cost us about $4,700 total for the consultant and for the hosting package and moving things around and the transfer fees, et cetera. So I think we're going to be good for another 10 or 12 years with that. And we do have a pretty cool forum, man, because there's nothing else like it on the net. There's no other repository for solar information like this anywhere. And I had no idea it was gonna get this big, and I'm happy it is. And I'm also kind of proud that we don't have any people fighting and doing stupid shit on here all the time, like arguing over stuff, that like some of the other forums are it's just ridiculous to watch some of the stupid shit that goes on. But you guys made it that way, and I appreciate it. And especially thanks to Mark and Alexander for moderating everything and doing all the actual work. So were there any other questions on the host? All right. We, after the fundraiser was over, I have been gathering MacBooks and iMacs for the last several months. And when I get them, they're always 2011 to 2014 because that's the ones that have FireWire ports. And I have several Point Grey Grasshopper cameras. They're most of them are smaller sensors, so they won't get the full disk of the sun, but some of them will get the full disk of the sun. And I've upgraded the RAM and the hard drives and all of them to be as fast as possible. And these are Macs, so a 10-year-old Mac is nothing like a 10-year-old PC. A 10-year-old Mac is still pretty current, and you can still use it. It's just it won't run the latest operating system. And we're going to be giving all those away with your money. Thank you for shipping, because shipping is the biggest expense we have in this program. So I am soliciting people that are going to use them in imaging or outreach or whatever they want to use them for, but not people that are just going to get them and throw them in the closet. So if you'd like to try any of those, you're welcome to. James Deep Solar 64 is going to be our first recipient. And we're going to send him an iMac and a MacBook and a couple of cameras and see what he can do with it. He's in North Carolina, so it's a lot less shipping than if I were to send it to Pedro. But Pedro, and these are all cool cameras. These are good Point Grey cameras. It's just I've got about 15 of them downstairs. And unlike Pedro, I cannot stand having a bunch of stuff that I never use in my house. So I tend to give everything away. Much to my wife's chagrin. She does not like that most of the time. I tried to give her bike away to one of the neighborhood kids one year, and she just about divorced me over it. So yeah, if I got something I haven't used in 6 months, I just give it away. But I know everybody doesn't do that, but that's the way I do things. So we got a bunch of these Macs and iMacs that are going to go. And James does not have a tracking mount. So if anybody wants to send him a Celestron AVX or a Meade LX75 or something small they're not using anymore, he could certainly use it. We're gonna try him as our special focus for PGR camera, iMac, MacBook, that kind of thing, and see what he can do with it. So you're muted, James. We can't hear your southern drawl because you're muted. And
He sounds really good.
Yeah, it sounds better when he's muted, to be honest with you. I've heard him talk before.
lower left corner.
Okay.
There you are.
There he
Now
is,
you
yeah.
can hear me. Okay.
And
Yeah, I
James,
really
are you related to Dolly Parton by any chance?
Believe it or not, yes.
Yeah.
My family on my dad's side is from Sevierville.
Ah,
So they grew up. Now this, you wouldn't believe how many times I've been asked this, but they grew up only about a mile apart and was very much the same way. Dirt floor, poor. I've been to where Daddy's grown up for. It's just nothing but a field now. But Dolly's place was on a ridge that was back in behind it. I want to say it was called Chestnut Ridge, but I'm not sure about that. But he hasn't seen her since they were very small. It was way before she got famous.
yeah.
So her money's
I love Dolly Parton.
her money's never benefited me.
There you go. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And you might think that James has a strong accent or sounds a little bit like Dolly Parton, but that's the way everybody sounds where we live. And I kind of put it on thick when I need to, and when I don't need to, I just kind of don't put it on thick. But so James is gonna have some. I gotta get it out in the garage and set it all up because he's never used Astro IIDC before either. And I know
I've not used Max much either.
Yeah, well, that's no big deal. Max just like a PC now. But the Astro IIDC software is very simple to use. I know a lot of you use it or have used it, but people have moved on from that. But that doesn't mean this gear is not still great because that's what really started everything. And a lot of people here are still using point grade cameras, like Alexander, I know, uses a Grasshopper, and several people still use them. So, and when you told me you were using the Windows 7 computer now, I was much happier about sending you this stuff because this will be like a massive upgrade for you because that's a relic, man. There's something that's running Windows 7.
Is, but I've always liked it. I've used 10, which is all right, and I've got my solar computer is an 8.
Yeah,
but I've always preferred 7. The old.
That's not impressive either. That's also a relic. Well, I'm glad that you're going to enjoy it because these will be real good for you. And
I do have a copy of Linux Ubuntu that my computer runs in dual boot, so I can boot it into Ubuntu if I wish. And I don't know how much it's like Mac, but
not much. So you're going to enjoy these Mac stuff, but we'll get them out to you here in another week or so. Like I said, I got to get them all set up. All right. So who has anything they want to bring up? Alexandra, I'm going to leave the floor with you because I'll talk all through the whole thing if I don't let somebody else talk. So I'm going to mute myself. Thank you all for attending, and I really appreciate everyone's support in the fundraiser.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
There's quite a few questions actually that were put forward this time, mainly coming to like 2 categories, and it's sort of like I think it's people having a problem getting to grips with cameras and frame rates, etc. We've also got a question from Warren about coronagraphs, and also about the pros and cons of having a dome observatory. So which sort of like topic do you want to talk about? I've got my coronagraph here if you want to see that. I know that Pedro and Brian will be able to talk about, like the dome observatory. Probably, I think that the question on the cameras probably will go on all night. We can go on to that question. So I can quickly go through my coronagraph.
Sure. I did read up about it in Christian's book. I guess the main question I've got is you worry about not having the sun centered so that light's blocked out.
Right, so if I just get the
and I am recording at this time, Alexander, so there will be a copy of everything.
Yeah, so what you get is a little group of these pins, right, which got a special name which I've forgotten. What's it called? Can't remember. Anyway, you can see that each one has sort of like a different numbered notch on it. Right. And that denotes which month of the year that you use it. I think it's like 1 to 6. So it's sort of like January, February. Oh, I know what it is. It's January and February, March, April. So it goes in months of 2. Okay. And so I think that the last one is like the June, July one, because what it is that they're all different sizes. because the sun, as it goes round we go round the sun gets larger and smaller. So you need a smaller occulting disc in winter than you do in the summer. You mustn't ever touch them with your hands. So you get given these little gloves because if you get any oil on them, because the sun is, you've got the full heat of the sun on that little occulting disc, they can heat up. And then if they've got oil on them, it can shatter the thing. So the little occulting disc goes into this tube, which has got your, for this one, it's a hydrogen alpha filter. So it's difficult to explain. So what they do is they call it like a coronagraph, but a hydrogen alpha prominence filter, because if you were to use it, you could use this as a true coronagraph. But what I would have to do is to replace this hydrogen alpha filter. And I think George is using, I think it's a 530 nanometer filter, which is more in like the white light region. But you have to go up a huge height. So I think that George uses his at like 3,200 feet. Because what you need to do is you need to get rid of all of the atmosphere to be able to use it. So if I actually wanted to see the corona properly, I'd have to take that hydrogen alpha filter out, place it with more of a white light filter, go very, very high up a mountain, and then I would be able to use that occulting disc, and it would be like a solar eclipse. Okay, but because I'm using it down here on terra firma, I've got a hydrogen alpha filter in there, but it's a very crude hydrogen alpha filter. It's not like an Etalon at all. It's very wide bandpass. So virtually all of the sun's light is blocked out by the occulting disc. And then because you've got just a very wide red filter in it, really, you can see the prominences really easily. So it is just like, in effect, when you actually look down the telescope, it is just like looking at a solar eclipse. It's just as beautiful.
Wow.
You have to be awfully careful, though, that if it's the occulting disc just isn't centered perfectly, you're getting the full brunt of the sun, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is why I don't trust myself. And so what I do is I use a full DERF on the front of my telescope. So, I've put that on the front, and I've just, got and put my hand at the back and felt no heat whatsoever, and felt that seems okay. I feel happier now.
I got
you. And then, but obviously back in 1993, when this was designed, there was nothing in there about putting, like a full frontal ERF on the front. And also when I, because I was very, very kindly gifted this coronagraph from a chap down in Portsmouth. This author who it belonged to had died, left it to this society in Portsmouth. And then this chap came to me and said, we've been donated this coronagraph. We're not sure whether it works. Would you like it? And they just gifted it to me. But when I checked it out, when I got it, I had a look at the hydrogen alpha filter, and it was pretty shot. So I did send it away to Germany, back to the person who designed it, who had retired. And he replaced the hydrogen alpha filter and brought it a little bit more up to spec and a bit more better in its safety. So I felt a little bit happier, but it did cost me about £1,000 to have it refurbished and get it working.
I was also curious because Chris, and I can't think of his call name on the site though. He has what he calls a spectro chronograph. He also uses some grading in it, which that was interesting to see. He'd sent me some information on that one as well. It's a little bit of a change on just a regular coronagraph.
Yeah, I think he still uses like an occulting disc and everything.
Yes.
The way he gets his hydrogen alpha light, you know how I've got this filter, you know, on this side, which is just a hydrogen alpha filter. What he's using is he's using like a slit.
Slit, yeah.
To the light on the hydrogen alpha wavelength and send it through. And it's probably because he's doing that and he's cutting out all of, you know, the dangerous light. It's probably in a way safer than mine. I don't know, to look through. Yeah. Certainly I've not blinded myself yet looking.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, Alexander, how do you get it from, you know, from when you set up your telescope to having the sun perfectly centered behind the occulting disc? What about the time in between those? Like when the sun is not perfectly centered, how do you get it centered behind the occulting disc without going blind?
Remember, how did I do it? I don't think that you're going to go blind because, like I say, I've got the front ERF on the front.
Right.
I've got, you know, like a hydrogen alpha filter, so it's only the red light that's coming through.
Right.
Yes, it's really, really bright, but I haven't blinded myself
Okay.
yet.
So there's a point in there where you're adjusting the disc to be behind the occulting disc.
Yeah, you are.
And then if your tracking's not right, then it's going to come back out, right?
Yes, but it in a way, what it looks like is it looks like, you know, when you take your camera and you look for prominences and it's really, really, really bright. It's not a blinding brightness. It's just really bright. And you just move it and get it out of the way.
Very good.
So.
Yes, and is that the fact you have the hydrogen alpha filter in there as well? Whereas if you didn't have that, I think going back to Stephen's point, I suspect it would be much brighter.
Oh yeah. I think so. I think you've got to use, you know, a filter as well. Like George, he uses a 2 angstrom filter, you know, centered on like 530 nanometers. So again, you're cutting down a hell of a lot of the light.
Well, I will add in that every shirt that I own for Charlie Bates, when I used to do outreach every day, has a burn mark right about here. When I'm changing out the calcium K and putting in the H alpha or the white light, just those few seconds, every single shirt I own has a burn mark right here. And I have a permanent burn on my chest. So yeah, I'd like to try one of those chronographs out, but you know, I'm not careful enough because, you know, these guys like Pedro and the spectrograph guys, they're all very patient and do everything very carefully, but I'm not really known for that. So I don't know that I would feel safe.
I'll probably stick with my hydrogen alpha. But
and also
I'm gonna stick with the same too.
Yeah. I mean, the H alpha stuff didn't exist back then, right? So the chronograph was the only choice.
Yeah.
Oh, it's certainly beautiful. I think that James would really enjoy it because, you know, he loves his visual and it is just like looking at a solar eclipse.
I probably would.
Yeah, that really draws me because there's nothing like an eclipse.
I've got some higher mountains around here too that I could use it as a true coronagraph. I could go up 6,600 feet and use it up on Mount Mitchell.
Oh, if I ever go on holiday, I'll bring it.
Yeah, James lives in a very beautiful area too, because that was my airspace when I was an air traffic controller. We did a large radius around Atlanta, and I know all about Mount Mitchell, and that's where all the millionaires go to vacation. So he's probably holding out on us. He's probably Dolly's probably in the other room right now recording a new album.
I wish.
I'm muting myself again. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Alex. Right. So is it purely visual, or do you have an attached camera as well?
I've tried to attach a camera, but it is not very good with the camera because I don't know the way the angles are. Because when you can look down with your eye, you can move and get adjusted so that the occulting disc is perfectly over. when you've got a fixed camera, I was finding that I couldn't get the alignment right. And it was just either off or not right. And also, the way it seems to be is that you can see every single bit in the atmosphere. So you've got this constant snow going past, like either flies or pollen and things like that. And I know that that is one of the reasons why, to use it properly, you have to be at high altitude, as you do get this snow constantly. So it's not great, but visually it's really nice.
Okay.
If I think I wanted to take images of prominences, I would use a hydrogen alpha echelon. But for a visual experience, it's really lovely. And it would be great to get a green filter and one day be able to go up a really high mountain and use it as a coronagraph, see how it, works. It would be great.
Yeah, Chris has got it down pretty well. Some of the latest thing, he's been changing the the slit that he uses, and seems to be getting some pretty good shots of the proms now.
Okay, so should we move on to the observatories?
Thanks, Alexandra.
Okay.
Very interesting.
If you have any more questions, I can answer it. And also I'll put up a link to some pictures that I've got of it, and a little explanation about it as well.
Great.
Okay, so we should go on to the observatories. So does anybody want to start with the pros and the cons of having an observatory in solar? I think, did Brian have some pictures or something?
Yeah, I pulled some pictures together. Can everybody hear me okay? I've been kind of quiet here and I'm not sure if the mic's working.
Yeah.
All right. This is just some pictures, a bit of the history using the observatories for solar work. So I'll try to go through this fairly quick, and then if there's any questions on it, just let me know. I gotta figure out where share screen is on here, but you see, everybody see the picture with the house in the background and a pair of roll-off roofs?
Yeah.
So the history of this, I'm currently working on my 5th observatory. Built the first one on the farm when I was a kid, which is still living as a garden shed in my parents' backyard. But after we moved to this place where we're living now, the larger observatory was 10 foot wide by 15 feet long with a roll-off roof, and it had my original work-through need 8, need 12, up to a 12-inch classical Cassegrain. And after having that observatory for a few years, I wound up with a Newtonian and changing them over on the mount because the Cassegrain's got a higher mount height, and putting a Newtonian on it, I'd have to have a 10-foot step ladder to reach the eyepiece. So the smaller roll-off was built in 2006. So that was used for quite a while. And this is just a shot of them open. At the time, this had the classical Cassegrain, this had the 10-inch Newtonian. In the back, in this end of this building, there's about a 4-foot deep insulated room, so I can keep it heated in the winter time and keep the computers. These are very old pictures, but the idea was I could work in there with bare hands and not freeze to death. And more of an important part of it is this time of year, I'm not eating live mosquitoes. And the wall height inside is roughly 7 feet, so it has a full walk-in door. And this is an earlier mount, but this is with the C14 on it. This is the Newtonian, and I had it set up with various filters. I could put the 75mm Edelon on and do some solar work with it, but it was never used a lot that way. This was more the first solar work I did with this is a Lund 60mm scope with the calcium K filter. I had a 4-inch f10 refractor, and this is a 75mm Lund Edelon mounted on it, and then a couple of side scopes with white light. And it worked okay for solar, but my biggest challenge was with a complete roll-off roof, there's all kinds of glare, trying to keep the screen that you can read it in the daytime. was a hassle. I could roll the roof back part way and shade where the computer was. The computer's off to the right of the picture. But that also opened the path for the wind to blow up over the back wall. So it was always cold. Poor ability to see the screen in that. So that kind of put me on the mission to put a different observatory up. So this is where I put the pod dome. This is the dome portion of the sky shed pod. The only thing I didn't like about the sky shed was the wall height is must and shoulder height, and the door is like walking through a submarine door all the time, and I just could not stand it. I had a couple of friends that had them, so I bought the pod on the dome on its own and built taller walls. They still weren't tall enough. I've got a couple of great big divots under the top of my head where I hit it walking through, but so this ran up. The dome was built in 2010, and this all stayed in use until last fall. And this raised observatory was kind of on its last legs. This is me inside the dome with, this goes back to 2012, pair of 4-inch refractors for H alpha white light, and the Avalon on the second scope here. It also went through a transition where I had a C 9¼ edge, which I was trying to do H alpha with, but contrary to some people's opinion, I don't have all day to wait for the perfect moment to grab an image. So that went by the wayside and I went back to the refractors. And what I've settled on now is this Orion Eon 130 millimeter Apple. And the plan here was to use it for deep sky. I can take the hydrogen alpha equipment off, ERF on top, pull the 80 millimeter long top. I can put up to a 100. I've got another 80 millimeter Apple, so I can do it for wide field deep sky. This is kind of medium field deep sky, where I can use the C14 for higher resolution. So this was the way the observatory was left until I started to decommission all this stuff last fall. Just looking at it from the other angle. The comment I'll make about a dome is any observatory, whatever size you think you need, build it a bit bigger. Because you'll always run out of space. My biggest objection to this situation was there was no room for my head between the eyepiece and the wall to try and do much visual. The new observatory, the walls are going to be, again, about 6.5 feet, so I'll be able to walk through a full-size door without stumping my top of my head off. And there'll be more room for the eyepiece. Tail end of the telescope spinning around when it's at lower angles. But you have to watch, for me, solar and planetary on the bigger observatory. You have to keep the wall height and peer in the right proportion that you can see down low enough. So basically, for the sun or the planets, you want to see the ecliptic in Sagittarius for the days, the months that Jupiter, Saturn, any of the planets that are in that part of the sky, and the winter part of the solar observing. So overhead's not a big deal. The big objection to the pod dome is that it does not have you can't see right to the zenith because this the overhead of the dome. Other than that, it worked perfectly well. And then this was just a shot with my homebrew double stack. I posted these pictures before, but that's the 2 Avalons focuser camera. And since both of those previous observatories are dismantled and being rebuilt, I've got that solar set up on my EM400 in the big observatory. And I need to get that back to its normal use. But we started assembling my dome this morning. So I'm hoping maybe by a week from now, we'll have it installed. We just have to see what the weather and my work schedule does. This was the situation this morning. The tarp covers the hole where the dome's going to go. The old dome's still set up behind it. It's going to be dismantled and removed, but it's a 10 by 10 building, and the dome's offset to the south a bit, mainly because that's where the pier that previously existed was. And but it gives me a little bit more room across the north end to have a desk and sit within it. squeezed between eyepieces and cameras and cables, and a bit of storage space as well. And this was from the NextDome website, but this is the track that their dome rolls on, so I'll be installing something similar to this underneath that blue tarp before the dome goes on. And that was the end of the observatories. But this is the assembly of hydrogen alpha etalons that go on that 80mm scope, or the 130mm Dion, with it set up the way it was in the previous picture. Then so what you can do, this is like the modular scopes. Take the thumb screws off, this adapter comes off, and then you put a moonlight focuser on and use it for white light, calcium K, or deep sky, because it is an Apple. The whole idea was to be able to switch it back and forth. Put the camera on, deep sky camera with telecompressor if you want it. And that is the last picture. But the biggest thing I would say about the dome, the nice part is the equipment's set up. You can look and use it within a very short period of time. It's an advantage when you have a good view of the horizon that you want to look at. It doesn't matter whether it's solar or deep sky. If you've got trees that go up 45 degrees on all angles, then having portable equipment is going to be more useful for the times when you can't see the targets you want. I mean, the warm room adds comfort, but I've sat out in sub-zero temperatures for a lot of hours, and it's Canada, I'm used to it. Is there any questions on any of that? It was kind of quick. I don't want to tie up the whole time period here.
So Brian, out of like the dome and the roll-off observatory, which is probably better for solar, or does it depend on your location?
I don't know if location would have a big influence on it. I like the dome because it keeps less sunlight out of the observatory, so the floor, the walls don't heat up as much. Like the big observatory where I have stuff set now, it's got very dark navy blue painted walls, so at night you don't have glare and stuff off the walls. But in the daytime, it does heat up quite a bit. So with the dome that has a slit, which I've moved into, you'll let in much less light. So you should have less thermals created inside the observatory. If you're working there for a while, it adds more complication because you got to rotate the dome to follow the sun or whatever target you're after. Keeps not a big issue for solar, but in the evenings, you're enclosed much more, so dew is less of a problem with the dome over versus the roll-off roof. The nice part, roll-off roof, you have full access to most of the sky except for what's hidden behind the roof behind it. Pedro has both domes and roll-offs, and what he thinks along the same line or not.
Yes, I guess you Brian, you raised a very good topic. It's very, very difficult to see the screen in a roll-off roof. This is one of the reasons I use the dome all the time, because you have shade and then you can see the screen. Of course, you can have some kind of a box to put your laptop into, but it's not the same thing. So and for solar, it's very difficult to do remote imaging, because you have to change lots of things during an imaging session. So you change cameras, you change Barlows, power mates, or scopes. So you have to be close to the scope. And I agree. Inside the dome, the space is not big enough. I'm small. I guess you are also, but my dome is not even 2 meters, and sometimes it's difficult to get around the scope. So space, it's very important. But I have a warm room also in my dome, but I'm close to the scopes all the time during the observing session. So I guess a roll off could be interesting, but too much light for the computers and all. Of course, you have problem with the seeing. So you'll have to image during the morning or late in the afternoon. And sometimes during summer here, I have 40 degrees centigrade inside the dome, so it's difficult.
The other issue but not an issue, but the one thing, it doesn't matter whether you're taking portable equipment, setting up, or building a dome, but the environment around you has the biggest influence on local seeing. Like, you can't change what's going on the grand scheme of things if there's, but if you can keep ideally a grass live crop type of surrounding,
right,
not heat up like asphalt rooftops, etc., you'll have your local scene might stay better longer.
And also I use a big fan, also a fan, to move the air around. That can help also.
Do you like blow it out the slit, Pedro?
A fan, like a rotating fan.
Yeah, but you're just circulating the air within the
yes,
within the inside of the dome. Okay.
Because with the dome, the seeing is also always a mess. In the beginning, you have warmer temperatures inside, and then it more or less the temperatures will be the same inside and outside, and then it inverts. So it's like looking through a window. So it's not ideal, but it's the one I use, and normally I do it in the morning, so it's not a big problem. Of course, if you use a roll off, you have the whole of the sun shining onto your mount, and that could be also, you have to have if you have a mount, like if you use a paramount, for instance, that's dark red, that will warm very quickly. So it's important to have a mount that it's white or near white. So that's important also. Or you have to use some kind of shade to reflect the sun. Anyway, I think the dome, it's not bad, but an important point that you raised, it's the only way to see the computer screen if you have the shade. So you don't see, you won't see anything if you are under direct sunlight. It will be very difficult for sure.
Once you get the scope pointed and that sort of thing, you're okay in my situation, because I can run the focus and I can theoretically I can run the pressure tuners remotely, but I don't have it hooked up right now. At least when I'm in the warm room per se, I'm under the sun and you can see the screens turning well. But it is a challenge, and I mean, trying to get a screen closed in when I gotta stand on a ladder to reach the top of the thumb tuning on the LS75, whereas I can stand on the floor and tune the pressure tuner knobs on the pressure tuner. So you got to have something that's kind of flexible and portable and not fall on the floor and shatter like I've had a few things do in the past.
Yeah, that happened to me also. And you use the same mount that I have, the Takahashi EM400. It's a great mount also for totally manual. So you can control it with the computer, but it doesn't matter. It works fine, and it doesn't heat under the sun. So it's really nice. It's not cheap though.
Shall I show you what I do? Because I do exactly some of the things that you don't want to do.
Show us.
I have a roll-off roof. Don't know how well you can see this.
Just hang on a minute. Brian, can you stop screen sharing so that we can see Gordon a bit bigger?
Oh, right.
That's great. Thank you.
Oh, right. Can you see my...
Yeah.
I'm not sharing my screen. I don't know what you're seeing. Are you seeing my webcam?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, right. So you see it's a roll-off roof. I accept all the points have been made. Black walls are a pig in the day because they get hot. Although fortunately the roof, you'll see it's about half open at the moment. So I can have a bit of shade on this back wall so it doesn't get too hot. Black mount, sometimes covered with a white sheet, sometimes not. the computer screen, it used to be on this desk, which was an absolute nightmare to see, as people have said. But now it's on the wall at the back of the observatory, and I can see it fine in the day. So that works for me. When I'm set up and doing things like time lapses, this is all Ethernetted into the house, so I can just sit in the doors and keep an eye on what's going on. But obviously, if you want to swap cameras and stuff like that, you've got to be out here. But I have to say, I love the roll-off roof for doing solar, because you can be in the sun. It's great. There are some penalties for that, I guess, but I love that. At night, though, a roll-off roof in the UK is a total nightmare, because all your equipment is dripping with water by about midnight, or it's iced over in the winter. So a dome would be great for doing deep sky in the winter. But I do like the roll-off roof for the solar stuff. 2 mounts, so all PCs running everything. You can see don't know if you can see the sky. Yeah, it's blue, clear sky today. Excellent.
Oh,
That's
wow.
not the UK.
We've been having remarkably good weather for a couple of months.
Can you show your computer screen again?
Well, for what it's worth, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really cool to wave it myself on your screen. Okay, thank you.
So that kind of works for me. I guess you work with what you've got. Because the reason for having a roll-off roof is because of the 2 mounts, the two setups I've got in here. I didn't really want to have 2 domes. If I was starting now, I would have a dome. But there you go. I work with what I've got. So that's how I do it.
Very good.
Raina, do you have any comments? Is Raina on there?
I don't see him.
The
Oh, is he gone?
the only comment I
Yeah.
can make is that whatever system you can set up and enjoy is the one that you're going to use. So building an observatory that you can't see the sun from, or planets when they're low on the horizon or something, is really defeating the purpose. So you kind of have to tailor it to your own situation.
Has anybody got any other comments on their preferences? Or we'll move on to the big question of the cameras. Because I think that with the cameras, I think Raina wanted to know why the obsession with the highest frame rate and why do you use gain? And also he wanted to know what is the problem of oversampling? Does it really matter? And I think Nick wanted to know more about the Apollo Max. So if anybody has any pearls of wisdom, then do say.
I will tell you one thing. This is Stephen Ramsden. When I was in Australia, I had the point gray grasshoppers there that I took over there, and I could get a better image to process in Photoshop with a single frame from that point gray camera in North Queensland, Australia, than I could get with 1,000 frames stacked in Atlanta. And I thought that was just unbelievable. I mean, seriously. And like when I send this over to James, a single frame is plenty enough to work with. Sometimes it's a little noisier here in the States, but in Australia, the stacking only blurred the features. So the point with this super fast frame rate, as most of you already know, is these features on the sun don't last very long. The sun is constantly changing. And in 3 minutes time, the surface of the sun, the granulation and the modeling in H alpha is completely different. It changes totally. So when you take a 3-minute stack of images with a point gray grasshopper, that might be 1,000 frames total. It could be 10,000 frames with something else. But the change in the features between that first frame and the last frame is complete. It's not the same at all. And when you try to stack all those together, you end up with blurred features. So being able to take 500 frames in 10 seconds gives you a much sharper image than taking those same 500 frames over 3 minutes and trying to stack them. That's been my experience. And with prominences, it's impossible. If you are stacking, like I use the point gray grasshoppers and I get 5-7 frames per second. When I use the Apollo M Max, I'm getting 90 frames a second. In reality, not just advertised on their website, but in reality, with a 10-year-old Mac, I'm getting 90 frames a second. So people are constantly starting out in this hobby and they'll say, okay, this is the best 500 of 1,000 frames. That's crazy. I mean, you should not be stacking more than 10% of the frames you're taking. I mean, unless you're out in outer space and you have perfect seeing. I mean, the whole point in doing this is to get the best frames, stack them together to reduce your signal to noise ratio a little bit. But people, I'll tell them on Facebook, you should really be stacking about 30 of those frames instead of 500 of them, and you'll probably get a sharper image. But again, the frame rate is because everything is completely different in 1 minute's time on the sun. It's totally different. And I'll finish it with this. Over sharpening, this is unrelated, but people try to sharpen it like it's the moon, like it's a rock. There's no sharp edges anywhere on the sun. There's no defined line or sharp edge of anything. So be careful when sharpening. Anyone else?
No, I agree with that. You see a lot of over sharpened images on the internet of deep sky as well. I think people think the more you sharpen it, the more of a result you're going to get, but there's a limit, and you get there very quickly, in my experience. Yes. Oversampling is an interesting one. I mean, per se, there's nothing wrong with oversampling. It's just that you're collecting data that's you can't use in a way, and if they're they're bigger files if you're oversampled, so frame rates slow down. So, but in a sense, there's nothing wrong with it, but you don't need to do it.
Another interesting thing is that I always use 8-bit videos. I never use 16-bit because it's not worth it. It's when you stack everything together, it will be fine. So Christian says exactly the same in his book. So
that's right. Yeah.
I think those files are so huge.
Sorry?
Those files get so big.
Yeah, exactly. And our computers are not good enough to, exactly. And what about the Player One cameras? Are they good, or I know Stephen likes them a lot. So
well, I'll be honest with you, like I always am, and I'm not one to hold back my words. The Player One camera is a good cheap camera. It's nowhere near the quality of the Point Grey Grasshopper 6 megapixel or 5 megapixel camera. It's nowhere near the resolution or quality, but it's also nowhere near the price. It's it's a $600 camera. It is along the lines of what I've seen from ZWO. I mean, it's basically the same company. I mean, the guy left ZWO and started Player One Astronomy. So, but it's not it's not a S-big camera. It's not a Point Grey Grasshopper or whatever the cool camera is now. But back in 2002 and 2003, there weren't any solar imagers, and nobody knew what camera to use for solar. People were using the 2U cam, the webcam. They would just take apart the webcam on their computer and tape it to the eyepiece, and that was it. And I know Pedro used one of those for a while.
Yes.
But the point, the monochrome CCD camera, I think, is the best as you can get for solar. But you're going to pay $2,500 for that camera with a sensor large enough to get the full disk of the sun. So yeah, the Player One Astronomy camera is really cool and it really works good. But if you're coming from a 6 megapixel Grasshopper, you're going to think, my God, that is noisy, because it is a CMOS small chip. But with that camera, you take 3,000 frames and stack the best, 200. With the Point Grey Grasshopper, I can take one frame and not stack it and get a pretty good image. But if I stack 600 frames with the Point Grey Grasshopper and I take the best 10 frames out of that and stack it, I mean, I'm not the top dog anymore like I used to be. You guys have all way overtaken me. But back in those days, I was taking maybe 6 frames out of a Point Grey. I would kid these guys at these imaging conferences. and they'd say, yeah, this is 65 hours of the ring nebula. I was like, yeah, this is 35 seconds in my driveway of the sun, total from taking it. That includes the processing, But anyway.
I tend to agree. CCDs are much better than CMOS. So
they are,
but they're going to be, in a few years, we're not going to get them. So
yeah, you can't even, I don't think you can buy one now.
No.
So,
That's
and the
right.
same thing with DSLRs. They've all gone to CMOS chips,
Right.
Which is great. But the technology's getting better and better and better in the CMOS, but it's still significantly more noisy
Right.
than a CCD. But it's also significantly cheaper, and that's getting more people into the hobby. So,
Right. And always get a black and white camera, never a color camera.
right.
Or solar.
Always
Certainly, I would agree
monochrome.
with
That's
you,
right.
Stephen. I would agree with you. When I use my Grasshopper, even though it's 26 frames per second, and then I use the ASI 174, even though it's really much a faster frame rate, the noise is terrible on it. Every single image I take is just ruined by the noise.
Yeah.
And yet, if you buy the same 174 chip in a Basler or in the Grasshopper version, I know that there are other people here on the forum that use it, say that they don't get any noise at all. So I think it is, the way the chip is used in the cheaper versions of the cameras.
Electronics.
Yeah.
They're cheap for a reason, aren't they?
Yeah. And I do
a lot of the
regret
noise comes
now
from
buying
the internal camera components as well, not just the chip itself, but can come from the internal camera not being shielded properly, and et cetera. But yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that. And I was explaining to James how I'm going to send him these point gray cameras that are 10 years old. And you might think, oh, I don't want that junk, but really they're better than the CMOS cameras that are coming out now.
I have to agree. I've got one of them that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah. So with the newer Player One, you just have to take a lot more frames to get rid of the noise. So it almost balances out. Yeah. In reality, on my 10-year-old Mac, I'm getting 6 frames a second with my point gray Grasshopper. I'm getting 90 frames a second with my Player One, but I got to take about 10 times as many frames with the Player One to get the same level of noise in my finished image.
I still use my point gray research all the time. So it's 25, 26 images per second. It's great. It's much better than the others.
It is. And I've got a suitcase that's got about a dozen of them in there, the smaller ones, the 2 megapixels. And I've even got some FireWire 400 cameras, which is like a 5 1/4 floppy disk for you PC users. You can't even find a computer that has a FireWire 400 port anymore, but they are great cameras. And I do like to play one though. And I'll tell you why, because Sean Wang marketed this at Solar Astronomers. No one has ever marketed a camera or software at Solar Astronomers. And I think that's really, really a loss on their part, because there's a big market and most of us are wealthy enough to buy whatever we want to buy. And there's a market out there that no one has tapped ever in this hobby.
And another thing that nobody raises, another point, is the global shutter and the other shutter on the CMOS. So if you have a global shutter, it's much better, because if you don't have it, the 174 has a global shutter. If you don't have it, it seems like if you touch the telescope, it seems like the image is underwater, so it moves all around. So for solar, this is not good. So
right.
The 174 has a global shutter. I'm not sure about the Player One. I don't think so. But the other...
no, it does not.
ZWO, they have what's the other name? The global rolling shutter. And the rolling shutter is not good at all. The 1600, I have that one. And it's a good chip, but it has a rolling shutter. So it's not good. With the seeing, if the seeing changes a lot, that's something you should also consider.
So
the 174 is very good, and I also use it all the time. So
yeah,
I've got the 178. I wonder what shutter it has.
It's a rolling shutter.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, that's why the cameras are under $1,000,
right?
And there's a toss up there because everybody can't spend $4,000 on a Grasshopper, but you're getting them imaging, and that's good. And at least you have some experience. Yeah, Michael
Yeah.
O'Connell says he's still using his DMK 41,
Yeah,
and
me
so
too.
am I.
The DMK. The 61 it's a great camera.
I had that 41. It was a great camera.
Yeah. You know, I did.
I've got the 41 and it's a great camera, but I can't get it to work on, Windows 10.
Well, we used to be sponsored by Imaging Source, and the same thing happened with them that happened with Point Grey. They just went out of the market because, they couldn't sell enough cameras to us. So I had the 21, 31, 41, and 51 DMKs. And I did even a big review that used to be featured on their website maybe 10 years ago. But then they just quit selling them, quit marketing to us. And Point Grey did the same thing. They have fantastic camera.
Try different versions of Fire Capture, because I can still run them in Fire Capture, but older programs, not the new one. You can still use them. I think I used the 5 point something Fire Capture, not the old version.
Well, Michael O'Connell also just said that the Player One Apollo M Max does have a global shutter, so I must have been mistaken there.
Okay.
And I'll tell you something else about it that's really cool. It's not cool, and it is cool. It has terrible Newton's rings. If you use any kind of Barlow or telecentric lens, the Newton rings are horrible on that camera. But the entire back of the camera tilts, so it's got a built-in tilt mechanism on the camera itself.
That's a great feature.
And it completely gets rid of all of those Newton's rings. And Sean Wang is very responsive to any questions you may have. And it's funny to me, I hope he's not watching, but he really doesn't know much about solar astronomy at all. And he had no idea who I was when I was talking to him, which is fine with me, but he just thought I was some old guy from an astronomy club somewhere wanting free stuff. I was like, no, I'd like to buy 20 of them, but he's just starting to understand what solar imaging is. And it's been fun to watch him evolve on Facebook from what he thought was a great photo to begin with to what now, and every time I talk about that, I think about when Alexandra just beat me to a pulp at that astronomer photographer of the year competition.
You're never going to let that go, are you?
Run-of-the-mill prominence photo beat my biggest prominence ever image from the Earth photo. I'll tell you what.
And in calcium. That's very difficult.
It's going to be unspeakable. They're nice, Stephen.
Yeah.
Bested by Alexandra.
She wore me out. I saw her over there. She was doing this with her hands.
I need to leave, everybody, so I'm going to sign off. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, cheers.
Hello.
See ya.
All right, bye.
That's the one I use. The Arn told us that he is using the Grasshopper. That's exactly the one I use. This is my favorite camera. The 28S4M. I use
28S4M. Yeah, I have a couple of those.
And I also have the 5M, but it's a smaller chip. But they are great, and they work all the time. No problem.
Yeah, they do. And the only problems I've ever had with those cameras with interference was being caused by the cable, not by the camera. The cable wears out.
No Newton rings. No
Newton's rings ever, no matter what you do to it. Never. Yeah.
But you do have those funny dark bars along the top and the bottom, don't you?
Yep. I think yes, but this is the window. It's not the chip, it's the window. So
yes, but you don't get it in white light. You only get it in calcium and hydrogen alpha.
Exactly, but I think it's the window because it's I just crop the image. I have to do
I do.
Yeah, but they are very, very good.
I haven't used mine in 5 or 6 years, I think. So it's been just sitting in a suitcase being there.
Well, they were the only cameras that would operate on a Mac also, that with the FireWire 800 connections. All my Point Greys are FireWire 800 or 400. So, I'm one of those crazy Mac guys. So that's what steered me towards them.
It's you to blame, Stephen. I think I met you at a conference in New York.
Yes.
At the conference in 2014, I think.
Yes, NEAF.
And you recommended those cameras. So,
do you think they ever thank me for all those recommendations? They went out of business.
I hope they do.
And Sean, which one are you using? Didn't I say you have an iMac and a Point Grey, right?
I do, that's right. I've got a color and a monochrome one. The color seems to be off on it every time I try and use it. I haven't fiddled with that one much lately.
Yeah.
But the monochrome is great.
Yeah, they require a lot of color balancing on the color one. For some reason, Astro IIDC resets the color balance to some weird value every time you start it, and you have to go back in and pick a spot and do color
Okay, is that what I'm
balance.
missing? There's one of those hidden features that I haven't stumbled into.
All right, well, very good. Awesome. Was that the, what other topics do you got?
I think that was it, actually.
Well, another thing I would like to, Nick can explain us how she colorizes this false color. It's impossible for me. I tried everything. And I don't know how to do it.
She is very good.
No,
very good.
Explain us, please.
I'll type it down for you.
Oh, you mean in fire capture?
It's she has a very, very nice. I can share the screen.
Oh no!
Yes.
There you go.
It's a very, very nice color scheme.
Nice, good color.
Yeah, great. It's great. I would like to know how to do it.
Oh yeah.
Surely it's over sharpened.
No.
No, that's about perfect. That's.
I think so too.
Good.
The only thing I don't like it's the inverted sun, but this is me. This is me. But the prom in blue, it's great.
Yeah.
You have to, and I also saw some images by Simon, the stupid astronomer.
Yes.
And
Simon
they were
does
great
that.
also.
Yes.
They were also great.
Simon.
So explain us, please.
She copied it from me, man. What do you mean?
Oh well, I copied it. I copied it from. It was Alan Friedman that I'd seen. That's where I got the idea to do
Who
it.
do you think he got it from?
Was it from you? There
No, but
you go.
you have some kind of tutorial or no? Alan Freeman doesn't explain anything. So
No,
It's
well, isn't
curves,
it like
man.
asking the Colonel the recipe for KFC? It's the only one thing that I've got that you haven't there.
Well, it's curves, and I'll tell you, you got to turn down the blue all the way.
Yeah.
I do that, and I never get this color scheme. So I don't know.
I've tried it. I ain't been able to get it either.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not easy.
That's why I do black and
we
white.
would like a nice tutorial.
Okay. Well, I can work on that. Yeah.
Right.
Well, Nick, I'm assuming you're adjusting the curves on the background image first, and then you're overlaying the disc on top of that, which you've adjusted the curves on another picture for that. You're not. It's not the same adjustment for the blues and the oranges, Pedro. So
it's a composite. It's not.
Man.
Yeah.
You you adjust the curves for the prominences to get that faint black, blue, sky blue.
I get that because
And
I
then
asked Simon and he explained.
Yeah, I told him how to do it too.
I don't know how to do it.
Well, you got to cut.
Very well.
You cut the disc, and then you feather 2 pixels, and then you paste that disc. You paste that disc onto the proms, and then you expand it a couple of pixels to cover up the disc. But you've adjusted the curves individually on those 2 images.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do you do it with a video with 100 frames? It's not easy. If you have like Simon showed us, he said it's very simple. But if it's a composite image and you have to do it in every image to get the video,
Oh, I don't know about a video.
it's not easy.
Have you seen Simon's video?
Yes, it's amazing. Yes, and the color scheme it's the same. So
Well, too bad Simon's not on here.
on Twitter.
I think, does he do the 2 different colors in the photographs, but in the videos it's one color? I think I might be mistaken there.
Yeah, because I saw the video, and the video seems it's an inverted image, and I don't know how he gets that video. The video on the computer screen, and then
all my cameras will record it inverted. You're in your software not.
Yeah, I
recorded
know, but it's not like that. It's not. If I do it inverted in my case, it doesn't. I don't get that kind of image, so I don't know.
You need a better telescope.
Yeah, I know.
It won't be that.
I don't have enough telescopes.
Yeah, one of those behind you.
Yeah, in
that one is the
IMP,
Unitron. Yeah. Sorry.
in IMPGG, you do a double invert. Have you done that?
Right,
Where
I
you
did that.
I
did that.
You did that.
I saw
It
that
might-
you are in IMPGG. You said that, and you
Yeah.
use a Mac also, and you stacked in AutoStacker. Though we all do that, and then you use GIMP, but it's the same as
Yeah.
Photoshop. So.
This morning, I put a reply within that thread of how I did it. So
Oh.
there is a written reply at the bottom, but it was
Right.
early this morning.
Let me see.
But the key could be that when you do the double inversion, where you turn the sky, rather than putting the line all the way to the top, you put the line halfway down. I need to do a screen grab of it really at some point.
Yeah, what you should do on our next meeting, Nick, is process on live for us.
Yes,
yeah. Just get your, your stacked image.
Supposed to do that? What?
I've done it several times on the internet. It's you might get, you'll get 2 or 3 viewers on YouTube if you publish that. But yeah, it's fun to watch for someone that's just process.
Yeah, I'm seeing your write-up. It should be easy. I didn't know that it was a composite image. So
instead of having this here, put that halfway down. Bring this halfway down, and that gives you a light sky, and the light sky takes the blue color on. That's the difference, because I kept getting a black sky, and I didn't want a licorice also black sky with a yellow sun. I wanted an orange sun and a blue sky, and bringing that bit of double inversion line halfway made it light enough to absorb the blue color.
If you do that, the proms will be white. So that's great. Also, the proms will be white, not.
That settles it then, Nick. You're gonna process a live image for us on next month's meeting.
I'll show you my observatory.
That'd be great too.
Yeah.
I love it when someone who's relatively new in the hobby stuns everyone with something new. I think that's the greatest thing ever.
We want to learn. We want to learn.
Yeah, I know. It's awesome. It's great.
It's funny. Oh gosh. Okay.
Okay, good enough for me. Anything else? It is 3:20 p.m. I'm very grateful to all of you for tuning in and having a little fun here. And I hope we can get a few more people. I don't think people know what they're missing on this because this is pretty fun.
It's great.
It is a fun thing. And
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So we will have the next one on July 10th, I think, 1800 UTC. And Alexandra always reminds me what time it is a couple of days before. And I appreciate it. So we will see you on the Solarchat forum. And Nick, you're in charge on the next month's meeting.
Here you go.
Adios, everyone.
Take care, all.
Take care, all.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.